on. And as I said, I've got some folks helping me today. Cherry Smith is also co-hosting, and so she'll be monitoring the chat. And then we've got Anita Baggy out of our technology department, and she will be helping to facilitate. And then also, just a reminder that this is a public meeting, and because of the current social distancing rules that we have to adhere to and the limitations with the number of people that can gather in one space, we are live streaming this. So folks who want to be present can watch the meeting via YouTube. And that way they can be in attendance, because otherwise, if someone wanted just to come to the meeting, they could have come to the Board of Education Center to attend. But of course, because that's no longer an option, we want to make sure that we're adhering to those. So just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we are live streaming. And I think at this point, it is 5:03. And we may have a few other folks join, but let's see, we've got 14 folks on the call. Most of them are members. So I think we're probably at a place where we can kind of move forward at this place. So with that, I was going to, and I don't know, is Miss East up on the call? I don't think she's here yet. But what we'll do is Miss Eastep was going to just kind of welcome everyone and maybe overview the agenda. So I'll take care of that. And then when she comes, Cherry, if you let me know when Miss Eastep joins the group, then we'll give her the opportunity to kind of open and speak at that time. So welcome to all of you. It's been just 2 weeks since the last time we met, although it seems like such a long time. And I feel really awkward. I've got this headset on my head today, and I'm not used to that. And I've got this really tiny screen in front of me, and I'm used to two really big monitors. So if you will just be patient, I appreciate that as I adjust. But I really do appreciate everybody taking the time to be here today. So what we want to do during this meeting is to review the survey results, and I really do appreciate the folks who had the chance to complete those, and it's not too late if you haven't done that. And I'm going to go through those results again and resend those with the new data, so it is not too late to complete that survey. And then also, I want to provide an HR update. And it's brief, but I think a lot has happened since our last meeting. And then talk a little bit about our long-term goals and get some clarification there so we can continue to move this work forward. And then Ms. Adams is going to um, uh, talk a little bit and gather some additional data from committee members in regards to community partnerships. And then I think at that point, we'll be able to talk about next steps and kind of close things out. So any additions or deletions to the agenda? I think we're probably in a pretty good place then. So I'm going to check and see who else might. Kiana joined us. And let's see here. Lena is here now. I don't know. All right. I think those are the new ones. So welcome, ladies. We appreciate you being here. But again, any additions to the agenda? And we'll always have the parking lot. You can surely use the chat box or the chat feature for that. So anything that we don't get to today, we can surely add to an upcoming agenda. But yes, please use the chat feature for that. All right. So let me minimize this. So just a review of the survey data. And as I said, thank you to everyone who completed the data. The information you shared was very insightful and will definitely be used to drive the work of this committee in the future. I shared with you a spreadsheet of the results. At the time, the spreadsheet, and at the time I shared the spreadsheet, it had the results for those who had completed the survey at that time. I think maybe 9 or either 10 respondents at that time. But I will be updating that and providing an updated results with you as more folks complete that survey. I was just again thought it was very insightful, very powerful. The things that were shared that were said and shared. It definitely offers a varied perspective, and we appreciate that. And we're glad to be able to capture that, and we want to do something meaningful with that information as well. Um, so, as a result of the information shared, we are going to begin drafting a plan for our own Grow Your Own program. And that program is going to focus in middle schools. And so with that, the initial conversations were around possibility of creating a club focused on teacher education, and just becoming a future teacher and creating some keynote or memorable experiences for those folks in middle school, and using their interest to help drive the enrollment in high school so that we could then possibly look at relaunching our teacher cadet programs. And I know that there were some folks that had some strong feelings about teacher cadet programs in the high school. And so we think if we begin with our middle school students, getting them interested, creating some really valuable experiences with for them. We've got UNCW very, in our pretty much depends on where you live, your front and or your backyard, taking advantage of that. And then UNCW does have a program with Isaac Bear that leads to teacher licensure, teacher certification. So we want to maximize and see how we can align ourselves and piggyback with that. So we are beginning those conversations based on the discussion that we had and then also the survey. Any comments or questions about that?
Yes, I was thinking that we can also partner with Mi Casa, that is a group that works with UNCW, but is specific for Latino students in high school. It's a partner effort between high school and UNCW to, to help them have access to college, but we can also give them education as a career choice. If we can partner with them, and I know Edelmira is really good at making connections and keeping up within their schedule and the activities they do.
Okay, thank you. I was not familiar with that organization, so I appreciate that. And how early do they begin their work? Would they work with middle school students, do you think?
No, they start in high school. As soon as the
They start
student
in high school.
enter in high school, they assign one student from UNCW to be their mentor, and
Mm-hmm.
they accompany them with homework support. And then when they start applying for
Mm-hmm.
universities, helping them with, the essays and all that. But they also do some like bonding activities, and they do really cool stuff with them. And it's mostly with Hispanic students supporting other Hispanic students, but they do much more in terms of connecting them with the community.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm just taking some notes. That is going to be critical in that work. So being able to have an organization that's already doing that work and then driving it toward education careers, I think would be extremely helpful. Um, Also, there's plans for a data presentation in June. We have two meetings in June, June 1st and June 15th. More likely than not, our June 15th meeting. And so again, that is one of the outcomes of the survey. You indicated very specifically there were data sets that you wanted to see, and we're going to see if we can bring as many of those data sets as it's really reasonable to that June 15th meeting. Any questions about that?
My only feedback on the grow your own
Mm-hmm.
program is I think that I saw a few people suggest middle school, and I suggested middle school as well in my response because I think, and we found this in pipeline programs for STEM in particular, you want to make sure people in junior high and middle school have like line of sight to what curriculum that they should be pursuing in high school, just so they can be in the game and not like self-select themselves out of certain classes, and it helps them mentally be like, oh, okay, I need to take, like this level of science, this level of English, that sort of thing. Communication skills would obviously be strong here, and it just aligns them to what they'll need for that future, and it kind of gets the inception model in their head. If you can help communicate during those programs what they'll need during high school, then they can kind of plan that out. And we found that in STEM too. So I definitely agree with that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and you have articulated it so much better than I did. I think you have somehow volunteered yourself for that committee. Thank you. um, let's see. So, any questions or comments about the data presentation? There was, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at the results of the survey that I shared with you. So there were a lot of requests, a lot of um, good information that I think would be very valuable to share. Maybe beyond what was in the spreadsheet, anything that we might miss. And of course, if you haven't done the survey, definitely complete that so we can capture that as well. But any questions or comments and related to the data that we might bring on June 16th? Okay, and if not, then the last thing I want to share kind of in this section of the review of the survey, and you can see the areas that we address. So we talked about future meetings, other information, teacher incentives, and we'll get to that part of it as well. Partner organizations, principal interview and recruitment, teacher retention, virtual job fairs, and of course, grow your own programs. The last part was just really about, there were many suggestions for additional areas of work for upcoming meetings, such as LGBTQIA, understanding the history and placement of special education programs at specific schools within the district, and accountability within and outside the organization, to name just a few. So I think those are going to be major topics that we really delve into in future meetings. So again, I cannot thank you enough for those who had the opportunity to complete the survey, and for those who haven't, if you would, I'd appreciate it. And then what I wanted to do is just provide you very quickly with some HR updates. Following our meeting, I did follow up with Dr. Martin, who was the gentleman who presented to us at our last meeting. And additionally, from the survey, it was evident that follow up with HR was critical. I had, as I said, one follow up conversation and planning to have another, where all the results from the survey are shared. So what I did was, just at that point, it was early in the survey window, so I just kind of overviewed for him some of the results that had been shared so far. And from just him attending our meeting, he has shared with us that they are already planning a virtual job fair, that they've already had internal discussions related to takeaways from our meeting, and they are planning to provide an update at our upcoming meeting in June. So again, the what was shared was very impactful, and our human resources department is already moving forward with having those internal conversations, planning for how to take what we've shared in moving that forward. And I don't know if he has had additional conversations. I know, Kiana, that your name came up quite a bit when we were talking. So I don't know if you've had any conversations. And then for all the resources, Andy, I think you shared some resources as well. And Kiana, those were very, very helpful. Um, but anything else in terms of HR?
I would like to share that I did meet with Deb Trafton on Friday, and she's the director specialist for classified employment. And we
Okay.
had, sorry,
Mhm.
we we had a conversation about how recruitment videos and retention videos on best ways to retain our teachers and recruit them um, using a video base. So PR and HR will be working together to create that video. So any ideas or thoughts on the video, the method, or what should be in it, I welcome all your feedback and inputs. Shoot me an email and let me know.
Well, I appreciate that. And you said for recruitment as well as retainment?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
And we were
wonderful.
kind of looking at not so much in addition to what's good about why you should work at New Hanover County Schools, but why you should come to Wilmington in general. So kind of looking at the whole community aspect of New Hanover County and what's great about living in Wilmington, and including those aspects to pull people into. Because as we talked about in the meeting last week, it wasn't just a New Hanover County Schools problem with getting Black educators here. It's a community-based problem.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Chris. So I didn't know, Kiana, Andy, if you guys had any follow-up or
I cannot remember where I read this. You probably know. It was back in the fall when there were rankings done based on the best counties to work in. And I think it was the top 25 or 50 counties to work in, and New Hanover was one of them. So that would probably be some good data to include in that.
I had not seen that.
I will look for it then and see where I found it.
Yeah, or it was so long ago, I've just pushed it out of my mind. But yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to know how we rank in terms of counties to work in, and then
I read
also to
it.
understand their metrics.
I read it because I am helping a friend that she wants to move to the Outer Banks, and she's finding a job there in their county. And that's when I was that information appeared on my desktop. We are ranked on number 17, New Hanover County, for different reasons. They have the salary scale, they have the working conditions, they also see the ability to easily adapt to the environment and to the community. So that is the criteria that was mentioned on that report.
Okay, thank you, Lena. I appreciate that.
Is that specific to North Carolina or is it nationwide, and is it specific to education?
It's North Carolina mostly. Is exclusively the one I saw was for North Carolina, and then the information was only, and it's a private contractor who does that. So I don't know how reliable we are not that low.
Thank you.
Anything we're missing around HR?
Dr. Smith,
Yes.
you mentioned internal conversations within that department, and I just wondered what that meant and what it looked like, and like how that might be formalized in the short or long term, so that it's this committee has talked a lot about that kind of training for the people at the very, very, very highest doing the top layer hiring. So
Well, I think that's a great question. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's a really good question. Based on my conversation with Dr. Martin, it was as you know, he's very new to New Hanover County Schools. And so, he came in very much in what I would probably describe almost slightly a triage mode, because at that time we did not have an assistant superintendent for human resources, nor did we have a director of human resources. And so I'm sure he went very quickly to those things that needed his most immediate attention. But now, and based on to somewhat driven by our conversation, he's now going back and having those conversations with folks about the topics that we shared with him during our meeting. And so asking the questions about, so how do we do this, and what has been the practice in the past, and so what does this look like, that type of thing. And I don't want to overspeak, but he's having those conversations very intentionally driven by the time that he spent with us last month. And I think by you know the the time they meet, that he's able to give us an update in June, he should, of course, at that time be able to give us much more specific and detailed information. And I'm sure if you were to ask him that the same question you're asking today, he could speak very specifically to what maybe the principal training or the interview training or those types of things would look like. Because again, I'm going to share all the survey data with him. I think that's why it's so important that if you haven't had a chance to add your voice to that, if you would, because that will definitely help inform the work and the conversations and the discussions happening in their department.
So as we're considering steps to move forward, when I think about the video Chris described, I would just hope that the images of people in the video represent the vast array of employees in our district. And I would also hope that when we are advertising the virtual job fair, that we advertise in both digital, paper, and media outlets, and specifically make sure that we are advertising with organizations that have high numbers for the demographics we're targeting.
Cannot agree with you more. I apologize. I'm taking notes as well. I think a comment in the chat box. Yes, I could not agree more, Karen. Great input. Thank you, Rachel. Anything else in terms of HR? I want to make sure that we're not missing anything around this topic.
I would just think along with those comments about diversifying everything, also sharing the video and any information about the virtual job fair, not only on Twitter, but also on LinkedIn, because a lot of people would be looking at LinkedIn for potential jobs.
Also, does the grow your own idea apply to employees such as teacher assistants, tutors, or other classified staff that like working with kids that we would want to recruit to join education programs to teach in the schools?
So yes, and that was one of the conversations that I had with Dr. Martin, and I think he's investigating what's existing right now. But we knew we did not have anything in terms of recruiting students, definitely not students in middle school. So they are looking. So that's why we kind of articulated that as something that would be new that we would go into. But I think that in June, he should be able to speak to whether or not there's any existing and what the opportunities might be for adding that specific to our teacher assistants. I know several teachers who started their careers as teacher assistants, and they are phenomenal. So we definitely want to take advantage and maximize that population of folks who already has made a commitment to children, and specifically the children in our district as well. All right. Nothing else with HR. Then the next topic was long-term goals. So in the survey, there was a request to revisit what our long-term goals were. And so I know we had long terms, we had short term goals. And so what I did here was just capture the long term. And what I'd like for you to do is just take the time to read through these. And I apologize to policy and procedures. I could not find yours explicitly stated. So I did restate that based on what I believe the work has been. And then also, hopefully I can share with you a little bit about what's going on with the school board association, and we can talk about what the work could be. So if you guys don't mind reading through those, and then we'll have that conversation. All right, sorry about that. Didn't mean to click off of that. So for our folks who were on our SMART Goal Committee, does that capture your conversations, discussions? Did I get it right? Did I go off track? Help me out.
Those two were definitely two that we had talked about, and I think they might have entered more than those two goals, but they might have been short term. I would need to pull up the spreadsheet and look. Do you need that information right now? Should I toggle?
No, I think you're fine. I mean, at least if we've got these two to start with.
Oh yeah, those are definitely correct.
Okay, all right. And then from our community culture.
Yeah, that's correct. That was one of our top goals we had. Maybe Casey or Karen or Lena can help me, or others that were on that subcommittee. I can't remember. I feel like there was one more, but maybe not.
And what I'll do is let me toggle between this document. Let's see. So this was from our last our meeting, our last meeting in March. And so with community and culture, this is what finalized long-term goals.
Yeah. Sorry. As soon as we started, I said no. Those were the two that I thought of were both short-term goals. So
okay.
I said that was my mistake.
Oh no. You're great. You're great. And then going back, the SMART goals. These were the two that I captured from that meeting. And then there wasn't one for policy. And I know that, the attendance was mixed a little bit with policy. We might have 3 meetings and a different person from policy show up at different meetings. But I know that, let me put this back on present, sorry. Are you guys still able to see my screen that says long-term goals?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And so I know that as a part of the discussion with policy and procedures, the conversation had been around examining district policies to ensure that they support diversity, equity, and inclusion of all students.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good characterization. For this meeting where we determined the long-term goals, I remember that, and I don't think we had a ton of people there just because there were some absences. But the last time we were able to meet at the team, that was essentially the main goal, and then the interim was until the NCSBA edits are implemented, and we would like to collaborate with them, of course, while they recommend changes. But seeing as how that's a year and a half, we were thinking we could go for some of the more influential policies on diversity, equity, and inclusion, such as discipline was one I know Julie really wanted to look at. And so we had kind of made progress with the policy matrix in the 7,000s and 8,000s on things we should recommend changing and what those should be kind of considering. So the only thing we didn't get into was recommending specific edits for those changes. So I think this captures it really good. I would just maybe add one more goal that is, recommend interim changes to policy while the collaboration with NCSBA is ongoing, something to that effect. Because we know that they're going to help us in the long term.
Well, and I think that since this last meeting where that was discussed, their timeline has been accelerated. And I don't know if Ms. Adams, you might be able to speak to that just a little bit, because I know that each month they're looking at least 10 different policies.
Right, and we're actually, they've already started. And so originally, I think that we were looking at starting in the next budget year, but we upped the timeline. So I believe that they are, we've already started to look at some collaboratively. So that process is beginning, and that's something that we definitely, maybe at our next policy meeting, I can just address at what point could policy cohort from EDI become part of that conversation, because they have a very scripted process that they go through. And I forget the series, the numbers of how they shift that would be aligned with what we're doing. But it's still a little ways out. So, I don't know if there's room to move around their structure and their process, because this is a focus for the district and it's something that we're really pushing forward with. So I think there may be room for that conversation. I'll talk to him.
Okay. That sounds wonderful. Because I know all the divisions have been asked to convert all of their policies to Word documents from PDFs. And I want to say that has to be done by the end of the month. So that is pretty accelerated if they're looking at having them all in Word documents by the end of the month. Okay. All right. So again, these are our long-term goals. And what I can do next time is bring back what I've got in terms of interim. And what I might do is email these out prior to our next meeting, the interim goals, just to make sure we can get some feedback and firm those up a little bit. But I do see these aligning very well with, our last meeting and also the work that we're doing with HR. Human resources. But I did have a question because I didn't see any goals that were related to academic achievement, nor goals that were related to, specifically related to student discipline. So were we looking at those more in the short term, or was it that, we, just, we wanted to prioritize our kind of our top goal? But I just kind of had a question about that, and I was wondering if folks wouldn't mind speaking to that a little bit.
I just dropped in the chat 3 that I pulled off of the spreadsheet that, as far as I can remember, I think it was the last thing that we were working within at the last time we met. And I know the last meeting or two, there was like, our membership was kind of like in and out, but that spreadsheet for the culture and climate group, we had definitely built out the long-term goal you have listed there. And then these three were on there, and one of them had a little bit of work, but the other two were just, they were kind of on there. We hadn't really gotten to them yet.
Okay.
So we never really had a determination of timeline just yet.
And I think for the SMART goal group, when we were talking about data, and this goes back probably a few meetings now, one of the data points that we were looking to collect was surrounding discipline and suspension rates. Correct me if I'm wrong, SMART goal teammates, but we did have that conversation a few meetings ago that was information we wanted to look at.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we had asked for discipline, just data versus demographics. And I want to say that it wasn't last meeting, but it was 2 meetings ago. We were looking on the policy committee at the student discipline policy, I think 7460, whatever that discipline policy is. And Julie said that she had quite like a start of some markups that she thought would help drive diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so she was going to bring that back to the team at some point too.
Yeah, I do know that she was doing some work around that, even outside this committee, related to the discipline policy. So I'll reach out to her. All right, Casey, so I have tried to save what you added to the chat to my desktop, so I won't lose it. But if I do, if you don't mind emailing that directly to me so that I can make sure that we capture that. I'm hoping I did it right, but I don't want to lose it in the event that because of my technology limitations, I lose that information.
I wonder if Rachel could probably drop it in the Google Drive folder that you started for the
Okay, yeah.
EDI.
That would be perfect. Now, if it's in the spreadsheet, then we've got it. But I didn't know if that exact same language was that where you captured it from the spreadsheet.
Yes.
Okay, then no, then I've got it. Then let's see.
Okay.
Here's one more. Oops.
There's one that I missed though. The 3 that I dropped in the chat. There's one that I missed, which I just dropped in there a second ago. And it actually had the most details.
Okay.
But it was also short term. I mean, I'm looking at it now, and implementation timeline was May 1st. So.
Okay. And see, and I was just getting ready to ask you because I'm reading it in the chat, and I was wondering if this sounds more short term than long term. Okay. All right. So what we'll do next time is, and I'll clarify ahead of time about the short term, but I think we've got some clarity on our long terms, and I will add those as well, because that is we've got to know where we're going to understand how we need to get there. So I appreciate that. Anything else that we might have missed in terms of long-term goals?
This wouldn't fall under any one particular committee, but I think it would be wise if we've talked about doing a flow chart of sorts about when the work group is going to kind of join with are we defining the goals that they're going to help really work out? And by they, I mean me too. So if we're going to pick these long-term goals, can we align work group work to support the long-term goals so that we're working on stuff beyond these meetings? Because meetings are great, but they're brief and we can't get everything we need to get done in the meetings.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that they're, probably our evolution, and I think this is where we were heading once we had finalized our long-term goals was, breakouts among us and then also informing the work group. But again, from my perspective, we needed the goals to be able to drive this to the work group. But I think we've got some tangible things that we can ask them to do and to respond to at this point. And just like our last meeting, when we met with the work group following that, I was able to give them an update, and that, in my opinion, was helpful in their work. So um, I don't know. I don't know if I would be the best person for a flow chart per se, but I would definitely be willing to kind of work on that with you if you would have an interest in putting together a flow chart. But I do believe that the two are merging. It's a little harder with the work group because all of those folks are school based. Um, Folks, in my opinion, and kind of getting them back around because, one thing that they were working on very clearly was the student work piece. So that's been a little bit of a challenge re-engaging students. Um, and now we're looking at and talking about what it might be to engage parents in the conversation, especially with what we're seeing right now with the impact on our folks with remote learning. But I do see these dovetailing together probably by the end of this month, very, very nicely.
I'll also add that the conversation we had in our EDI meeting with HR, that information was taken back to the work group, and that is what led to the conversation I had with Deb Trafton, who's actually in the equity work group, to kind of get that conversation started with the video on retention and recruitment of teachers. So I think it's actually happened. It's just maybe not being documented that it's happening, how it's happening, but I definitely think it's happening already.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Anything else on long-term goals? You guys are great. Okay, if not, then community partnerships. And so, again, part of the survey was asking folks about community partnerships. There was quite a bit of information there, and just wanted to really dig into this a little bit. And so, Ms. Adams, if you would not mind kind of leading this conversation, I
Sure.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anything else on this slide, Dr. Smith?
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
it.
All right. So with the community partnerships, Dr. Smith, Lisa, and I met a couple days ago, and we took a look at the survey, and there were some really great suggestions of community partnerships for EDI, but we're all looking at it from different lenses, right? So I'm looking at it from a board member and community member. Some of you are looking at it from a business lens, and some are from nonprofit, some are in the classroom. So I was hoping for those of you that have responded to the survey and made some suggestions for community partnerships, could you maybe explain a little bit more in depthly how you anticipate them aligning with the work that we're doing? And I'll give you an example. So one of the suggestions that I put was communities and schools, and it was specifically in line with the Grow Our Own programs, because I believe that CIS has a captive audience of students that they work with in their summer school programs, in their after school programs. And so that would be an opportunity for them to possibly partner with us. We could have speakers go to them. So that was where I saw communities and schools as a partnership opportunity, growing our own. So there were some really great suggestions. There were different businesses. There were NAACP. We saw PPD. So just if you responded to that section of the survey, if you could speak to your thought process on some of the partnerships you shared and where that kind of came from. Anybody?
And we had quite a few
Yeah.
respondents.
So let me ask, so for those that put businesses on the list, what are some of the ways that you feel we could partner as an EDI committee in the work that we're doing? How do you feel that the business community interfaces with our work? And I'll put that to everyone, even if you were not one of the ones that listed that as a partnership opportunity. How do you feel that local business could help the work, move the work forward within our schools?
I mean, I can go and speak a little bit about GE. Is we have a volunteer network, GE volunteers, and we do a lot of work obviously with like STEM curriculum all the way from elementary to high school tutoring. And that's an option. We already are very involved, but maybe we could like find a way to organize and be mindful about who is going to where, and is there a need that we're not addressing? Like, are we just going to the places that have asked, and is there a need that maybe hasn't asked us for help that we could send some of our folks out to? That could be a possibility.
Great.
And Ms. Adams, I went in the survey results directly, so just as a reference.
That's great. Thank you. Sean, I'm gonna piggyback on that because one of the things that you'll be hearing more about, which aligns directly with what you were saying. Caressa is working on a program called All Hands on Deck right now, and it's about bringing more volunteerism into the system. So we'll definitely be talking to GE about that as we're moving forward. So thank you. Yeah. So if we could take a look, Karen, did you come off? Did you have a comment?
No, I was. Let's see. I have to get off. Wait a minute. I had to get off and get on my iPhone where I was getting better internet. Internet was really shaky over on the desktop. So
well, we are glad to have you back.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard bits and pieces of it. So
okay. Yeah. So could someone who I saw a Profound Gentleman on that list, who shared that, and I'm curious to know what they do.
Oh, I shared that one. Profound Gentleman is a national organization. I know in North Carolina, they're based out of Charlotte, and they're really about like networking and supporting Black male teachers, Black male educators, and really like I think they have some like 100% retention rate in the profession based on their like mentoring and whatnot. But I don't know details in terms of how they work with a district, or is it more networking? But I think it's worth for sure reaching out and finding out more.
Looking into for sure. Thank you. I saw Latino Alliance on there. I do think, especially in recent months, I feel like that partnership is getting a lot stronger with the system. And I think that that's going to be a really good relationship that we want to continue to support and invest in. I think that there's a lot of good things that we can do together. This next list, Divine Nine. Can we talk about who Divine Nine is?
I'm not sure. I know I put something in. Are we talking about the survey suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the Divine Nine are the fraternities and sororities, like the Deltas, the AKAs, Kappas, the African American Greek organizations.
So you're saying how do you see them partnering with our schools? In what ways?
They have different initiatives that they do every year, like they present middle school, maybe even some as early as elementary, but I know middle and high school, they present them to the community, and they have to talk about their careers, and they have to have like a little bit of a profile or a bio, and they present them to the community, and they do scholarships and stuff like that. So and I know that they're working with African American youth, so that's why I thought maybe they would be an organization where you could identify some youth that are college bound and kind of help give them some career guidance.
I can speak to that because I'm a part of the Divine Nine. All of our organizations have national programs. And a lot of those national programs are for voting, going back to school, education. And she is right. We start as early as middle school, and we present opportunities for them, scholarships. We sponsor young kids. So that's an incredible resource there within the local community. And all of us have received a degree, so we have connections deep in schools anyway. And I also mentioned North Carolina State, UNCW, the NAACP in specific names. With the NAACP, if you get in touch with Deborah Maxwell, she has her fingers and on the pulse of the Black community, and she has a plethora of relationships within the community on the school level and also within other organizations. So that would be a great start. UNCW, the Upperman Center, Sean Palmer is the director there, so he's in contact with young students every day, all day, and being able to even present to the UNCW Upperman Center, or to even have him begin to share some of this information and hopefully get some of them interested in teaching if they're not already interested in teaching.
Okay, great.
But for the Divine Nine, that's a great option because each organization, male or female, they have programs that focus on education and employment.
Okay, great.
And just to piggyback on that also, it's important for us to remember as we're doing that work, we say representation matters. Representation matters for our young colored students to see African-American teachers, Hispanic teachers, Asian teachers. It's also important that they see that representation as well in our community partnerships and the people we bring in to volunteer into our schools. And having groups like the Divine Nine, the NAACP, the upperclassmen, and making sure that they are being represented and that our youth are seeing that, hey, you can do this, this, and this in addition to a pursuit of education within the schools. I know at Sunset Park, on the first day of school, the Alpha Phi Psi, the Kappas, they are all there welcoming the students as they're coming in on the first day of school. Something that small is very powerful when you have little Black boys walking into their first day of school. So.
And when we come to communities, we're always looking for each other. So many of the potential teachers and stuff will most likely be a part of Greek letter fraternities. So if they know that there's a strong community of Greeks in that city or that county, they would be more apt to come and get connected.
So how can that overlap with the HR conversation?
HR having a conversation with some of these points of contact.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about doing some videos about not just coming to work for New Hanover County Schools, but why New Hanover County is a welcoming place for people of all colors, that may be a good, what is our Greek life here?
Right.
And I think to be able to introduce that to the world could be a really positive piece.
Yep.
So based on what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so we talked about the HBCUs. We're looking, to be doing more recruitment there. For those that are listing, the Derek Coleman at CFCC, I know he's the small business director there. What was the thought process behind businesses that could support? Is that from a financial perspective, or is that utilizing people as mentors? Like, what were you thinking?
Did you say CFCC?
Yeah, Jerry Coleman at the Small Business Center.
Oh, I put down CFCC, but I didn't put a name, so
okay.
That wasn't mine.
Did anybody on here put the Small Business Center? I'm just understanding. Because these are, they're good lists. I
did, but I didn't list the name. I was thinking more along the lines of just getting connected with other business-minded people in the community.
Okay. YWCA popped up a few times, which I think would be a good partnership. But what is our current level of partnership with YWCA, Dr. Smith? I know our students go there probably for after school programming and whatnot, and some of our parents are probably served by some of their programs, but do we have a defined liaison or contact there?
Not to my knowledge, and I think most things that happen are probably school specific.
Okay.
And not district wide.
That may be something that we want to look at. Their number one thing is eliminating racism, right? Empowering women. It's a lot of what we're talking about. So we may want to look at that as a committee. How do we strengthen that partnership? Because we're talking a lot of the same language. Boroughs Welcome Fund. Andy, was that you?
Yes, me.
What were the thoughts there?
They do a lot of work with diversity and equity, and I know they're the ones that sponsored me to go to the meeting back in the fall in Raleigh, having conversations, and I can put you in contact with the program officer for
Okay.
birth.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
One other thing, I listed the New Hanover County NCAE, and I'm just curious. I put that because I know that they're growing and looking to grow here in the county. I feel like that's a good place to go to recruit teachers and to help maybe build some teachers programs. From the teacher perspective, do you guys agree? Those of you that are working in the schools directly, do you think they would be a good contact to talk to about this? Why or why not?
Was that the NAACP?
No, that's the NCAE, North Carolina Educators Association. Or wait, did I say it wrong? Did I say it backwards? NCEA? Wait. North Carolina Educators Association. I wrote it backwards. That one. And like NEA.
Yeah, I think they could be.
Okay.
And I am a part of the NEA Global Learning Fellowship this year. So that's something I could ask about when we have our next Zoom meeting. But definitely some of the NCAE, you know, the local one can help us.
I just, I know we've got some really great ideas within this group, but I guarantee that a lot of these groups that we're looking at and talking about have probably invented some of these things along the way and have some great programs that we haven't thought about. So, utilizing that partnership and bringing people together to focus on, the things that we're looking to move forward with EDI. I think the more outreach we can do, the more networking we can do, the better the ideas we're going to be able to generate and move towards. And, again, I'm always about finding funding. I think that that's going to be incredibly important moving forward, especially post-COVID. Funding is going to be harder and harder to find. But this is an incredibly important initiative that our district has embarked on, and we need to make sure that we have the funds to be able to support it. So I think that these partnerships are going to be very important moving forward.
And Stephanie, I think that I believe Mark Jewell is still the president of NCEA.
I think he just stepped down. They just elected a new president.
Okay.
I don't know who it is though, but I think that I think that the election took place just like a week or two ago.
Gotcha.
Not recent. But yeah. Okay. Any other, for those that maybe haven't responded to the survey yet, do you have any suggestions as far as partners, specifically in that growing our own program? Who do you think we could go to for resources, ideas, or funding?
I mean, I am always on the idea of thinking big. If we can write letters to Apple, we can write letters to Google, and then we tell them what we do because they have funding for that. They budget something in there for initiatives like this one. My idea is to have some letters ready with our goal, but addressed to particular situations. Some people might help us with discounts for teachers. Some other can help us with giving us raffle tickets for something or tickets to go to baseball games, whatever. So if we send, we need to have ready a couple or a bunch of letters that are basic statements, and then we send them to those communities. And when we hear, because when I was checking on partnerships, I saw the Google for Educators. They have a lot in there. I've been reading, and they offer a lot of things. If the least they can give us is discounts for staff with them, or for Apple. Apple is great partner all the way. So why not? Why not send them a letter from our county and ask them for support for our equity committee, and they might give us something.
Lena, I love where your head is. I tend to think really local, and I'm like, okay, who can we get to that's at our front door? But you're right. There are so many equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives going on around the country and around the world. And why not New Hanover County schools,
Exactly.
right?
I mean, I will write to Oprah. I wrote to Oprah once, and I mean, they didn't give me anything, but maybe this time it's gonna give us something. Can you imagine if she come to to invite us to the show or something, or she send us something for the school? Why not?
Exactly.
Is everyone going to her graduation commencement speech May 15th? I'm so excited. Do you know what I'm talking about? She's doing the big graduation. I'm gonna get inspired. But yeah, I think that's a really great idea. So that maybe let's take that conversation down that, I think we've got a good list of local folks that we could talk to about partnering, growing our own. But I do think that we could go a little bit more broad and identify within our group or within the work group who are our grant writers, who are our dynamic letter writers, who are those folks that could reach out to some of these other partnerships that we're thinking about and brainstorming about.
And Target, every year, Target give us some grants and money for initiatives like this one. What do you want to do with this money? And then we need to recruit people that are good at grant writing. And I have a couple of parents in my school that they always offer that kind of support. Hey, I'm good at writing. You want me to write a grant for this or for that? I say, yeah, sure. Why not?
Awesome.
So if we have that people like in place in line, in case we make a good connection or we hear of a great idea, then we can have that ready to go.
That's fantastic. I think that's a really great suggestion. Okay. Any other ones? All right, if there's no other comments around the partnership, Chris, I don't know if you want to respond to Karen's parking lot item.
That is definitely something we can bring to the PTA. I meet with them once or twice a year, just on general basic ideas for the school, but definitely bringing them into inclusion and showing diversity in their pictures and in their what they promote. We can definitely mention that to them as well. I did too notice that in the picture, and also in the picture that Roland Grice sent. So I was very aware of that. And we will definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Make sure we talk to them.
All right, Dr. Smith, I'm going to pass that back to you then.
All right. Excellent job. Way to go. I appreciate it. You did phenomenal. I appreciate that. And so kind of the last thing we've got, our next steps. So how do we move this work forward from the point where we are right now? So, today we talked about the results from the survey. We talked about our HR updates, what we're planning right now in terms of the conversations that have been had, the virtual job fair that they're planning, the update that we'll get in June. We revisited our long-term goals, and we talked about our partnerships. So how can we now move this work forward? So what are our next steps? For me, it will be to share all of our survey data with HR so they have all of that.
Well, we don't know how long we're going to be living this new kind of, I hate to say normal because I don't want to think it's normal. But anyway, perhaps we could do some type of round table with some of the resources that we just talked about in a virtual way, just to see how they might be able to play a part. Since we can't meet face to face, just assessing the community to see, the availability of some of the organizations or their willingness to participate. Just thinking off the top of my head, maybe some type of roundtable of some sort, identifying these key players in the community.
All right. I'm going to also provide an update to the work group so that we make sure we've got that connectivity from what's happening with our board committee and the work group.
A next step for me is talking to the NCSBA about timelines for conversations around policy and equity.
Okay.
I have another, it's more like, I don't know if this has to do specifically, we have our goals, but right now we have an immediate need that is access for our students in this remote learning environment, because directly in the schools, we are seeing the gap that is growing bigger and bigger with the students not having access for different reasons, or for us not having the strategies to reach out to more students that don't have the support at home. I don't even know if there is anything we can do about that right now, but it's big, and it's gonna become a really big issue when the students come back, and the ones that did the work are gonna come fresh as a cucumber, and the students that were disconnected for all this time are gonna be clueless on what is going on. And it's gonna be bigger when we promote all these students to the next grade level with no sense of what's going on, not even being prepared as they should with the regular schooling that they were having. So I don't know if we can, is anything a short-term thing that we can potentially do, or no? I don't know.
So what I can share with you what the district is doing right now, regarding students, we have handed out devices to all students, families who have indicated a need, even multiple devices in the same home. If you've got 3 children in one device, the math just really does not work. So we have handed out multiple devices to folks. We are also on the cusp of signing a contract with AT&T regarding hotspots. And so we have thousands of hotspots that are currently sitting in a warehouse, but we have to work out the legalities of just signing that contract. And as soon as we have finalized that, we're going to put those hotspots in the hands of children. So we know we've got children who we've given devices to who don't have connectivity. But we think that will go a long way toward kind of closing that gap. I would say from a committee perspective, I think we have to be willing to have and engage in this conversation as a community. Again,
because that's more where I'm gearing towards. I know that if I'm talking about my school, all the students now have a device. I know, because everybody who asked for a device, we gave them a device. But I'm still calling students on daily basis, and they are not submitting work. Some of them are not submitting work because they don't know how to click the submit button. They don't find it. And they have tons and tons of work that is there in their laptop, but is not coming to the teachers. Some others just don't have the home environment to do anything. Some others are just dismotivated, and they are taking advantage of the situation for not do anything because they don't have like a mindset of how important this work is going to be for them later on. And in some cases, not even the families know, because my husband has a job that makes him be in contact with people on regular basis. And he is a big ambassador for education. And I tell him, tell the families that they need to do the work, they need to send work. I say, no, they say that the teachers are not doing any, are not sending any work. And say, but we are sending work. And say, yes, but on the parents' end, we are not reaching out. I don't know what else to do. And this is really disheartening because I know how hard teachers are working, how much the county is doing to provide the accessibility and all that, but we are still not getting the like in a better place where the students get to understand how this work is so important for them and for the community.
Well, and I think you've captured it well. And what we're seeing is that along the continuum, even students that we would have probably characterized in our traditional school setting as gifted are experiencing that same disconnection. And I understand the connectivity issues and the device issues. And again, as you said, we're doing as much as we can at this point to make sure that we've got devices and connectivity is available to our families, but getting folks to navigate the system to participate, and folks are struggling. And what we're hearing and from a lot of folks is that they are experiencing what's going on as trauma. And I can tell a very personal story that was shared with me by a teacher at Ashley High School. And that teacher commented, let me share this from one of my very best students. And it was a young man who talked about the fact that during the typical school year, he would have been up at 6:30 in the morning, out of the house by 7:30. But because of everything that's going on, he's, not going to bed till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's sleeping all afternoon, and he doesn't know what's wrong with him. And so our students are experiencing trauma from all ends of the continuum. And I think, also, you made the point at the beginning about what is our response going to be to this. And the governor actually just signed today some legislation that will provide funding to districts to build out a response to this. And of course, it will not bring everyone to 100% whole, but our district will be developing a very detailed plan to support students who we believe have not gotten what they need in order to be ready for that next level of work. So students who have not made the progress or anywhere near the progress that we would have wanted to see. But what you describe is a very, very real problem that we as a district and, us as a
Nation.
state and us as a nation and
No,
people will have
it's
to address.
worldwide. Let me tell you,
Yes.
I participate on a group that is from people from many places in the world, from Australia, from England, from Italy, from Canada and South America. Don't even mention it. It's huge. Everybody's
Yes.
sharing the same concern. But I'm thinking on a local level, on a small tidbit. I am, for example, supporting and I partner with the Latino Alliance. And every week we are putting a Facebook Live with instructions for parents and recommendations for parents in Spanish and tell them, hey, it's very important that you get the students to do the work. Contact the teacher if you don't know how to do it. Call the help desk on the technology support for the county. So like advertise that more in different languages, like make it a daily announcement. If we can partner with local the radio stations, like sending a message that goes every day home through different media. And so it's at least we are telling them that this is important, that they should be doing one work a day at least and trying to connect and all these recommendations to make it more visible for them, because if they don't hear about it, they think they can ignore it. So
Yes. Yes. Your points are very well taken, and you're exactly right. We have to, regardless of our families and how they're positioned, we've got to provide them with the support that they need to navigate, what's happening in the world right now to the best of their abilities. And it's going to take a lot more. It is going to take our entire community.
yes.
Yes. Yes.
Miss Dr. Smith, can I speak a little bit
Yes.
to this?
Yes. Definitely.
So Lena, or Miss Espinoza, I called my principal a couple weeks ago because I was kind of, it's a moral dilemma as far as what do you want to focus on. So I really found myself having to step back and remember the saying that you got to Maslow before you bloom. Because there's so many of these kids that are in survival mode right now. So I kind of switched up my language with how I talk to parents. And it's helped. I mean, we're at about 89% active in Google Classroom. So, and we serve a very diverse diaspora of students. From very affluent to anyway, we just serve a very wide range of students. So I found that once I switched my language, I started to get more response from parents. So I can, I really asked, like, is there anything we can help you with? Didn't even mention anything about lessons or anything. Like, how's everything going? Where's your frustration coming in? And then I reached out to Naomi Mendez to help me translate for my Spanish speaking parents, so that I could send it to them. And I found I got a lot of response back by kind of switching my language. That's helped dramatically. And we're doing pretty good. I mean, we've distributed devices and stuff, and we're waiting on Wi-Fi hotspots, but it's just, I mean, I'm on the phone every day. I'm texting, I'm calling, I'm Class Dojo, Google, like everything aside of smoke signals from Leland. So it's definitely, I feel your pain though. It's frustrating, and I had to call my principal, and we kind of talked about it, and yeah. So I definitely feel your frustration, and having to remind myself that we can only control what we can control.
And I know I'm not saying I'm not feeling like defeated yet, but I want to just join more efforts to get more accomplished. I think that's my point. And I understand completely the social emotional component and the way we should approach each individual situation, because we need to be very tactful, especially because we are going directly to parents' homes, and we are not there to rule and tell them how to do what they need to do. We are just providing the support that they need for whatever we can provide. I always have my phone numbers for food, for how to, even for unemployment, what are the steps on that process, if the different things, if they ask me for that support, I want to have it, or I want to have a number that I give them in case they have the trust to ask me about that kind of thing. So yes, but the more we recruit people on that regards and having to talk and approach families, I think we are gonna get a little bit closer to support one more student.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
Yes. Anything else as we move toward closing out? Any additional next steps? And I did put down to send out I'm going to clean up the long term and send out the short term goals. Anything else? Okay.
Dr. Smith.
Yes.
Happy Educator Appreciation Week to everyone, and thank you for appreciate you.
Well, and happy Educator Appreciation Week to you too, and all of you as well, all of our current and past, and maybe even future educators that are on the call. As we close out, I would ask if you wouldn't mind doing the plus delta in the chat, so that we can capture that information. It was extremely helpful, a little complicated last time, but extremely helpful in having that feedback. And so we tried to build it out that way for this meeting as well. And I want to check to see if, let's see if I can. Nope, don't. So I guess with that said, I'm going to close our meeting out tonight. And I cannot thank you enough for your time. I've been on many Zooms, and I think I'm starting to get a little more developing a greater comfort zone, greater level of comfort with these. But I do surely miss the face-to-face. I really do. And hopefully we can find ourselves in a room together in the not too distant future. So any closing comments before we end? And again, please, if you would share your plus delta in the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. And any items for the parking lot.
No items for the parking lot, but I just wanted to thank everybody, especially the educators. You know, my little kids have been on videos and Zooms and FaceTimes, and they miss their teachers a lot. You guys really
Yeah.
are our community. You really are.
Thank you for that. All right, guys. If nothing else, you guys have a great evening. I appreciate all of you very, very much.